What is the essence of creativity?
When I look up the word art, what pops on Google is the following definition. It is the expression of ideas and emotion through a physical medium. I myself have made art of my own, but I always wanted to go bigger. I've always wanted to write and illustrate comics, shows, or maybe even movies. But enough about me. Me? I at least have the chance to write and finish these things whenever I want. I'm barely a college level guy, man. My bum ass has all the time in the world. But you know who doesn't have all the time in the world? Animation workers. To this day, they are crunched, underpaid, and worst of all, are right now running the risk of being replaced by soulless machines. Please, support the animation strike, guys. I can't stress this enough. A certain show reminded me more than ever that art can only come from and towards a person. And that show is the recent Adult Swim original, Invincible Fight Girl. Before we move on, please consider subscribing to my Patreon to watch exclusive content for only $3 a month. Invincible Fight Girl is probably the best animated show I've seen in all of 2024. That's not to say there weren't any other greats. X-Men 97 is an astonishing example on how to properly revive a show. But the Rogue and Magneto triangle really brought the show down for me a notch. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, the first co-production in more than a decade to not rely on the MCU's image, came back strong with an amazing first half of Season 2. Shit. My Adventures with Superman Season 2, a vast improvement over Season 1. Even going as far as to bring in my favorite version of Supergirl.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
But I'm still not a fan of the villain designs. James Gunn's Creature Commandos is unsurprisingly great, but I don't think it was the most ideal way to kick off this new DC movie universe. Now, I'm not saying this show doesn't have its own problems, I'm just saying Invincible Fight Girl has a powerful theme and message that's just executed in such a masterful way while also truly taking advantage of the medium of animation. See, this is why I want to create content. And it also goes to show why this level of quality can never come from a machine. No matter how much Elon Musk stands, try to convince me otherwise, yeah, you know who you are. AI can simply never bring us another Spider-Man 2, The Dark Knight, Avatar: The Last Airbender, SpongeBob, or The Incredibles, at least not without literally stealing parts from them. Yeah, we all know that, so now, what the hell is this show about? Well, it follows a young girl named Andy, who grew up in an island full of accountants. Yeah, I already can tell what kind of show this is. It's basically a slightly more mature version of OK KO Let's Be Heroes. And just like KO, who dreamed of being a hero, Andy dreams of being a pro wrestler. Upon knowing this, her parents encourage her to pursue her dreams, so they send her off to the big city where she can start her training. Along the way, she meets new friends who will help her on her journey. Her manager Craig and personal analyzer Mikey Beef Puncha. Something I noticed while watching each episode is that the three feel like fusions from the One Piece cast. Andy takes from Luffy and Zoro, Craig from Nami and Usopp, and Mikey from Sanji and Chopper. And of course without being super derivative, because even outside of those comparisons, they are still well-realized characters. For me, the weakest one from the trio is Craig. Yeah, he's funny and serviceable as Andy's comedic foil, and I like their sibling-type dynamic. But I don't know, his introduction was kinda lame, and the fact he's Queso Poblana's nephew is never really touched upon. They never even speak to each other. Like, aren't they supposed to be family? But for what he does, he's fine. I just hope Season 2 actually does something to make him more relevant. Then you have Mikey, who actually has a lot going for her. I like the Sonic and Tails dynamic he and Andy have. It's actually endearing seeing this young girl try to be a role model to this kid she just met. A massively built kid, that is, but I digress. And one thing he easily has over Craig is that he has an actual on-screen family conflict with his dad. I mean, Mr. Krabs over here turned his 8-year-old boy into this colossal monster. That should be enough to have you wanting Mikey to leave that place already. To the point that even his own big brother agreed. Now finally we have the main character herself, Andy Smith. Andy's just one of those characters I see myself through for a variety of reasons. Like Po, Naruto, Anne, Luz, and so on. Not just because of her determination and the way she got through it all, but because of how the show tackles the topic of inspiration through her. Season 1 mainly focuses on how Queso Poblana in her prime inspired Andy. As a result, Andy wants to be just like her no matter what it takes. But rather than actually training her, she just uses it as a rigged test so she can leave her house. And that test is to perform her signature move, the perfect strike. So from that point on, the main driving force of the show is Andy needing to learn how to replicate it. This even extended to other characters, these being some of On P's sworn rivals, the power couple Ruff and Tumble, with the addition of someone else. Like Andy, Ruff and Tumble want to replicate the perfect strike, but the difference is, they got so obsessed with specific ways to do it. Ruff thought it was all in the fingers, Tumble in the toes, you get it. So much so that they split up. Not just that, they became sworn enemies, even creating their own dojos and clans to best each other. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they were simultaneously creating another obsessive beast, that being their own neglected daughter, Birdie. And long story short, Birdie is the best written antagonist in the entire show so far. Not just because of how she fits into the conflict, but mainly because of how she and Andy mirror each other. While Andy has supportive parents, loyal friends helping her train, and actually wants to use wrestling for positive productivity, Birdie was neglected since she was a toddler. She trained all by herself, and her wrestling knowledge is only a means to an end. Another thing is, you really empathize with her. Of course, her plan of getting two cults to destroy each other is kinda messed up, but considering neither Ruff or Tumble took the time to teach her from right to wrong, can you actually blame her? Especially right after she turns into a hulking beast. Rather than helping her, these two jackasses attack her. Their own flesh and skin. Their spiritually broken child. On the process, all of this devastates Andy. Not only couldn't she save someone whom she saw herself through, but she saw firsthand what kind of emotional damage her dream career caused. You guys tell me, how many shows do this? How many shows have the protagonist going through some horrible event that leaves them reflecting upon their life in tears? Right after that, we get the season finale, which is kind of underwhelming to be honest. I like seeing the creative designs for the other wrestlers, but my main gripe is the villains they chose, those being the Perm Gang. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it, I don't care about these guys at all. They're pretty much the Wrecking Crew, you know, those filler villains Marvel uses in one or two occasions, but for some reason propped up to be big time antagonists. I don't care about their tragic origin, I don't care about Immaculate's trauma over Aunt P, I just don't care. Mainly because at the end, the finale itself stops caring. Them being scared of fighting for an entire episode doesn't change anything about how the fight goes. Now with all that aside, throughout the entire three-parter, Andy is trying to test out the perfect strike. But despite everything she has learned the entire week, nothing is actually working until Mikey and Craig remind her that the way she's attempting the perfect strike is Quesapoblana's signature move, not hers.
Is that what you've been trying to do this whole time? Become Aunt P? Of course you're not Aunt P! You think I'd manage her? You're Andy! Now forget the dumb old lady move and just fight! Like, now!
So what Andy does is give her own unique spin on the move, and then it works. Greatly. Blowing everyone both metaphorically and literally away. Not only is this a narratively triumphant moment for the show, but it's also a wonderful allegory to the topic of inspiration. Tons of artists out there, including myself, take tons of inspiration from other people's work. For example, I myself want to write stories, and the stuff that greatly inspired me are the original Spider-Man trilogy, the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, and a lot of the DreamWorks movies, and so on. But one thing a lot of people should be wary of is if their work comes off as plagiarism. With that said, while you are advised to not be derivative, it doesn't mean your work has to be the most original thing ever. Because here's the thing guys, it doesn't have to be. It's kind of what South Park taught us in that one episode where Butters tries to call out the cast for supposedly plagiarizing The Simpsons. The message is about how borrowing tropes from other media does not automatically mean you're stealing from them. However, if you are taking stuff from them beat by beat, then you are crossing the line of plagiarism. In other words, Andy doesn't do the perfect strike by coming up with something 100% new, nor by doing the other extreme of doing exactly how Aunt P solidified it, but by simply performing the strike in her own unique way. That's what should matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how old or overused a trope is, it all depends on how you yourself would do it. And that is the missing piece as to how your work can be different enough to stand out and be called your own signature move. Now for some episode ranking. Number 10, Episode 2, Dreamers and Busters. Again, the way to introduce Craig is just kinda lame, and I just don't care about these Star Fox Metroid-esque side characters. I don't even remember their names. Number 9, Episode 1, I Am. Nice introduction to Andy, her world, and her struggles, but again, I just don't care about the Perm Gang as villains, although here they're serviceable enough as appetizers. Number 8, 7, and 6, Episode 8, The Rusty Rumble. Episode 9, Formation, The Perm Gang Strikes Back. Episode 10, The Missing Piece. I like the background characters. This guy's a lot of fun and I love his imagined rivalry with Mikey's brother. I like how they introduce the Keith David villain and keep his real intentions as a mystery for season 2. But again, the Perm Gang's origin just feels like filler to pad out episode 9's runtime. Number 5, episode 6, Behind the Wall, The Finger in the Toe. Nice setup to the upcoming conflict. This guy's voiced by Master Shake, and you can easily see where the plot thickens. But I kinda saw the twist with Birdie from a mile away. Number 4, episode 3, Friends. Again, I just dig Andy and Mikey's friendship. And this episode does a great job establishing his struggles and how it reminds Andy of how she felt all those years in Accountant Island. Number 3, episode 5, The Perfect Strike. Great episode that shows how important both Craig and Mikey are for Andy's quest. Also, Andy bleeds by the hand in this episode. Holy shit, like how old is she again? 14? She's 14 years old? You're telling me Mr. and Mrs. Smith sent their teenage daughter, who should be in high school right now, to a big city with zero adult supervision where she fights multiple grown adults just to kickstart an entire career that involves fighting people left from right? In what world is this even legal? Number 2, episode 4, The Way of the World. An entire brawl episode with kick-ass animation. Like seriously, this was from the same people who made Randy Cunningham? Bravo, you guys! I also like how Andy doesn't have some seated rivalry with Mikey's brother. It's simply an arranged match. Also, she loses. Not for some contrived reason to make your 5-year-old laugh, but to show Andy, despite her impressive skills, she's still not strong enough to take on every opponent in her way. It's such a natural way to ground your main character. But come on, we all know which episode is number 1. Episode 7, Birdie Unbound. Yeah, this episode just embodies what makes this show so special. Not only does it tie to the main show's theme, not only does it show how problematic and dangerous child neglect is, but it mainly shows how Andy and Birdie mirror each other. Not just that, you can tell neither wants to fight the other, but because of their own commitments, neither really has a choice. And that ending, oh man! Andy watching how Birdie is alienated by her own family, bursting in tears, calling her parents for comfort, Aunt P watching from her window, it's just powerful stuff, man. I would argue Birdie becoming a Hulk was kind of out of nowhere, but if it works, it works. In conclusion, please guys, watch this show. You will not regret it. It's fun, exciting, superbly animated, with amazing messages, and with season 2 possibly on the way, well, that is if Zaslav doesn't delete the entire show for more tax write-offs. I simply cannot wait for more. Anyway, that was it for today. Stay faithful and hopeful.